This is the Atlanta Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hi everybody, Jim Fitzpatrick with the Atlanta Small Business Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today we're excited to have with us Ms. Leslie Cuban, who is the Market President of FranNet. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Great to be back.
I was going to say back on the show because
Yes.
you're a frequent guest, and we love when you come in and you're always bringing somebody along with you that either just acquired a franchise or is now entering into opening up their own franchise, and you help so many people to do just that. So we appreciate all of the contribution that you've given us here on the show. And so we've got some emails from people that said, "Who's Leslie Cuban and where did she come from? Her advice is fantastic." I'm sure those people have probably contacted you. So today I want to learn a little bit more about you and what your background is. So talk to us. How did you get into franchising? What's the history there?
Well, it starts with my family.
Okay.
My father blazed that trail
Okay.
in our family, and actually it's a similar story to that of a lot of our clients.
Mm-hmm.
He went to college, he went to work for a big company, he had a long career at 3M.
Okay. Yeah.
We were up in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yep, that's a big company, that's for sure.
And he had climbing the corporate ladder and doing well and happy. And division mergers started happening,
Yeah.
and he could have gone along with one,
Sure.
but as he would say, that would have been starting all over.
Right.
And he didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And so that was the trigger for Dad to start exploring, well, what are some things he could do on his own?
Right.
And after a period of research, he learned about franchising
Okay.
as a way to start your own business.
Right.
He was the kind of guy who didn't have his own entrepreneurial idea.
Okay.
He didn't have this vision
Yeah.
or passion for something
Sure.
to go and
Sure.
launch this new venture. And he was a supporter of our family, so
Right.
he wasn't in a place to take a big financial risk. So
Now, around what year is this?
this is mid-'80s.
Mid-'80s,
This
okay.
is the mid-'80s,
Okay,
yes.
great,
And
great.
so he found a business brokerage franchise
Okay.
that he had no experience in,
Yeah.
but he had the right skills,
Right.
the transferable skills to make a business like that work, having come from a marketing and sales career. So moved our family to Atlanta, and he started his business and did very well with that.
Sure.
But speaking of timing, franchising became regulated in the late 70s.
Oh, okay.
Which provided a more consistent, standardized way
Okay.
for people to buy franchise licenses
Sure.
and for companies to grow through franchising. So kind of after he had done business brokerage for a few years, franchising really started to pick up steam with this more standardized way of franchising being offered
Okay.
to franchise candidates.
Okay.
So he saw a much higher success rate among people who were part of franchise brands
Oh, sure.
versus independent
I
business
bet, I
owners.
bet.
So he converted his whole business brokerage practice into working with a select group of brands to grow them in the Southeast.
That's great.
So
Yeah.
I worked in a lot of these businesses.
Yeah, very
We
cool.
were involved in a photo finishing franchise, a one-hour photo
Yeah.
finishing
Yeah.
business, kids education, mailboxes, etc.
Yeah.
was
Wow.
was a brand
That was huge.
It was huge.
Yeah. Who did they sell out to, mailboxes?
UPS.
UPS.
Yes.
Okay. That's
Yes.
right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Now they're
Yeah.
in
So
every-
Dad got the whole thing
Wow.
going in
That's
our
pretty cool.
family, and it's interesting. We're working with a lot of families now that are kind of like us
Right.
in a multi-generational.
Sure.
Someone in their young 20s, straight out of college.
Sure.
Looking for something different to do,
Yep.
and him with all his experience.
For
so
sure.
it's fun to.
You've been doing this for a long time.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
Wow. So was the plan always to follow in your dad's footsteps?
No,
Okay.
no, not at all. I had a degree in communications,
Okay.
and actually started to explore careers in broadcast media
Okay.
of
And-
some
and
kind.
here you are.
And here I am. This is kind of my
Sure.
other calling,
Right.
so to speak. But and this is in the mid-'90s when I graduated
Okay.
school, and I came back to Atlanta.
Okay.
It's interesting, had I graduated with that ambition today, with the film industry
Yeah.
booming here,
Yeah, that's right. I know.
it might
It's
have
like
been
the
a
new
different
Hollywood.
right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't then.
Right, right.
So I didn't really have a plan B.
Yeah.
So my dad helped me take over a Mailboxes Etc. franchise
Okay.
where the owner was having some problems.
Sure.
And so that was my first entree in
Wow.
my mid-20s.
So you've been on both sides then, both
Yes.
as the franchisee, actually working in the trenches,
Yes.
in the business, as well as helping hundreds, if not thousands, of people in Atlanta, find the right franchise for them, right? So that's pretty interesting.
You're drinking the old Kool-Aid,
Yeah.
walking the talk.
Yeah, for sure. What did you learn in your first franchise experience with mailboxes?
I learned how to run a business.
Okay.
First and foremost, I didn't have any experience
Yeah.
with that. I learned about small business financials.
Yeah.
I learned about customer service.
Yeah.
I learned about having employees.
Yeah.
I learned about marketing
Yeah.
a small business. So it was very much a crash course,
Yeah.
not just in running that business,
Right.
but in how to run my own
Sure.
business successfully.
Sure.
So and I couldn't have done that on my own.
Right.
MBE was a very strong franchise, still is, as UPS. And I had someone to call every day, and I did.
That's
I called
good. Yeah.
every day.
A coach that's just
Yes.
like a help desk that
Yes.
just says, hey, in every area, marketing, accounting,
All of it.
legal, the whole deal.
Yes.
Wow, that's
yes.
pretty cool.
So,
yeah.
and I did, and at first, when I was first getting started with it, I called a bunch, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
But then as I pretty quickly, there's a system in place for learning. So
Right.
I pretty quickly,
Right.
got my legs under me
Sure.
with that,
Sure.
and became a lot more self-sufficient.
Yeah, that's pretty
with
cool.
that business.
Yeah. So you know firsthand the value of a franchise system and what it means to that business owner, versus ABC, packaging company or what have you, versus a mailbox, et cetera, at the
Right.
time. It really is huge. I mean, it brings so much to the table for that entrepreneur, right?
Well, it helps people learn how to run their own business.
Right,
And
right.
I contend, I was in my mid-20s, if I can
Yeah.
learn it,
Yeah.
just about anybody
Sure.
can learn it.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of new things that you learn as a small business owner.
Right.
If a lot of people have worked in big companies and they
Right.
led and they managed people,
That's right.
but that's a different environment
Yeah.
than in the small business environment.
Sure.
So I'm getting some training on how to actually run a small business.
Yeah.
And do that successfully without making too many mistakes,
That's right.
costly
That's right.
mistakes.
And then not to mention the value in the marketing that a brand and a franchise brand brings to that business owner from day one. I mean, from when you're running a mailbox, mailboxes, et cetera, location, you're part of this huge chain of locations that makes you, part of this huge success story right away, right? Versus saying, I want to build my packaging company and hopefully over time people will come to me. But even if you did that, you're still up against that mammoth franchise system out there, that of somebody else that purchased a franchise, right?
The brand equity can be
Yeah.
extremely valuable. But even beyond that, this was actually something I learned in those days. Mailboxes, et cetera, was a big brand
Right.
when I was a part of it. But they still trained you, don't just rely on brand name recognition.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
to get out in your community.
Oh, sure. For
you
sure.
need to join business associations.
Right.
You need to market
That's right.
but they taught us how to do that
That's
and where
right.
to go and
Yep.
and the right ways and the ways not to do that. So brand, yes, but also all the other ways
Yeah, for
to
sure.
market the business.
And when you were
huge.
involved in it, we didn't have the internet like we have today, right? So when somebody picks up their cell phone and says, "Hey, I want to send a package," chances are that franchisor is going to take care of that, getting you on Google page 1 and your location versus saying, "Well, I opened up a package store under my own brand and not with a franchise, so I'm on page like 7 on Google," right?
Right, and you
never
don't
to be
just
found.
throw up a website and
No, you
you're
don't.
on.
That's right.
You have to have the marketing prowess.
That's right.
And dollars behind it to do
Yeah,
that, which
yeah.
is what good franchise systems can bring to the table.
There's no question
That,
about it.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you do with FranNet. I mean,
Yes.
it's a huge name. It's a nationwide company. You guys have done great work here in Atlanta. What is your role first with FranNet as the market president, and then what does FranNet provide its clients?
Yeah, I mean, our base service is helping people choose the right business for the right reasons. And I think that's both parts of that are really important.
Okay.
There's so many options that are out there. Just in franchising alone, there's thousands
I know, it's unbelievable.
of them
Right.
in many, many different industries, not just food. And so,
Not just food, because everybody goes to that, right?
everybody
Oh,
thinks
McDonald's
that.
and Burger King, that's a
Right,
franchise.
Right,
yeah.
and those are the choices. And
That's
if I'm
right.
not interested in that,
That's
then
right.
why look at a franchise?
Yeah.
But there's a huge world in business services, senior-oriented services,
Yeah.
kids, pets.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure.
a wide.
Whenever I have a
gamut.
buddy of mine or a friend of mine that will call me and say, you're in small business and you've opened up a number of small businesses, and in fact, you host a show called the Atlanta Small Business Show. What do you recommend? I'm thinking about X business, The first thing I say is check out to see if there's a franchise in that first. I don't care if it's dog grooming or packages or whatever. See if there's a franchise, and if there is, first take a very close look at a franchise.
Right. Just consider it.
That's right.
As
That's right.
one way of opening that sort of a business.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people will have a fantasy about owning a certain kind of business.
That's right.
It's like, I've always dreamed of a
Yes.
bed and breakfast, or I've
Yeah.
always dreamed of a restaurant
Sure.
or a pet care business. But the day-to-day reality of running that business
I know.
may be very different from the fantasy.
That's right.
So that's what I mean by choosing the
Yeah.
right business for the right reasons.
Right.
Is we've got to look at, well, does it match your talents? Does
Yeah.
it match your financial needs and goals?
Sure.
And all of this? Does it fit with the other
Sure.
pieces of your life?
That's right.
So we're a matchmaking service. We're
Yeah.
like Match.com for people who
That's great.
want to buy a
Match.com.
business.
So
Yeah.
one of our last discussions that we had when you were on the show, I thought it was interesting when I asked you the percentage of people that come in to say, hey, I've been in accounting my whole life with XYZ Corporation, and I just took an early retirement, and I'm 50 years old, and I want to open up a franchise. But it's not necessarily going to be in accounting, is it? They're going to do something else other than what you would think. Oh, you were an accountant, you're probably going to open up an accounting firm. And that's just not the case, right?
It's not how it works
Right.
in franchising. Most people, and I mean less than 25% choose a business
Yeah.
that has anything to do
I think
with
I
their
think that's so
prior
interesting, right?
employed career.
Right,
So,
right.
but they may use their skills. Now, the accountant
Sure,
may use
yeah.
their accounting skills
right.
behind the scenes
Right.
in running their cleaning company or their
Like your dad
pet
did with
business.
marketing and
Right.
sales. Sure.
Right. He had no experience in business
Right.
brokerage, but the key skill was sales and marketing for a
Right.
business like that, which he learned
Right.
when he worked at 3M.
Yeah.
So it's more about the transferable skills, not the direct technical
Sure.
know-how.
Sure.
of
For the people
business.
that are listening to us right now that say, I'm interested in a franchise, I want to learn more, what is the time frame in which from the time you first meet with someone? And I'm assuming, is there a cost to meet with you on that first interview to say, hey, we just want to meet with you and throw some things, at you to see what you're thinking? Is there do you charge a fee or anything for that?
So no, there's
Okay.
no cost in the beginning
Okay.
or throughout the process.
Oh, okay, great.
Another way to look at our service is we're talent acquisition for many strong
Okay.
franchise brands.
Ah.
They're the ones who are paying us.
Gotcha.
That
Okay.
they're seeking
Okay.
great new franchisees
Okay.
who can run their
Yeah.
business and represent
they
their
need you.
brand. So
Yeah.
they're the ones that are
Great.
paying us.
Okay.
So that's why we are able to offer our
Fantastic.
services
Great.
at no cost to the
Great. So
looker.
what is the average time from the time that I may meet with you because I'm interested in a possible franchise or opening one up and to the time that I'm actually turning the key in that door of that franchise? Is that 6 months? Is it a year? What typically is?
So there's a typical time frame for choosing the business.
Okay.
We've got a very efficient and streamlined way to help people
Okay.
figure out what would work for them, look at what's available, and find the right opportunity. That
Okay.
takes about 90 days.
Okay.
3 or 4 months tops.
Okay.
The person has to be willing to commit the needed time for their due diligence.
Yeah,
They've got to do
sure.
a lot of research.
Sure.
We help them with their research. But it doesn't take more than a few months to
Okay.
find the business. Now, when you're going to open that business depends on what it is.
Okay.
If it's a service business, it could be under 6 months
Okay.
that you're open. But if it's a more traditional bricks and mortar,
Right.
very high visibility,
Yeah.
like a fitness center
Okay.
or a nail salon, where you've
Okay.
got to have prime real estate, it
Yeah.
might be a year because
Might
it
be
can
a
take
year,
that
yeah.
long to find the
Sure.
actual appropriate real estate.
That's right. Doesn't mean that you're not working your tail off in that year because you are just to get it open.
Getting it
right?
ready,
That's
and
right.
but
Yeah.
there's the timing is a key question that we ask because
Right.
people have different timing needs,
Right.
and so if someone has a certain need to be open in their business in a certain period of time, we talk about that. It
Right.
becomes one of the factors in what we choose.
Sure. So a buddy of mine works at a company, does very well for himself, and has been in the business, been in that industry for 20 years. I won't mention any names, but he owns 10 hair salons.
Yeah.
He's not a hairstylist.
Yep.
In fact, he's bald, if you must know. Okay. So, but he said, no, this is a really cool business, and I
Yes.
want to. So he bought these 10 franchises. He started with a few, and then grew it,
Yes.
one by one. Do you have franchises like that? Is that a common thing that you see where people buy a franchise and yet they're not even in the day to day?
I have a client who owns 12
Really?
hair
Okay.
salons.
Okay, there you go.
Actually. Yes, I'd
Okay.
say it's about 50%.
Okay,
of
really?
our
50%?
clients. Yes.
Wow, that's interesting.
We looked at our, kind of looked back and reviewed all
Yeah.
our clients from 2019
Yeah.
and found that half of them chose, it's what we call a semi-passive model.
Okay.
Where someone's going to keep their corporate job
Right.
or they're semi-retired
Right.
or it's not going to be their full-time gig.
Okay.
And so, but they're building as an investment
Sure.
on the side
That's
over
right.
a period of time, and it might replace their income and
That's
be
right.
their full-time.
Yeah. Or something
at
that
some point.
maybe that is their retirement income in the sense that either they keep it or they sell it. You
Right.
know, your friend's got 12 of them now, might bring a nice piece of change when he or she turns, time to retire, right? Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And then there's companies out there, there's people out there that I would imagine that say, well, I don't want to buy a franchise because I want to start a franchise. I want to have my own little business, and then I want to franchise it out. You know, I want to make my own donuts rather than buying a Dunkin' Donuts. What do you say to those people?
So I have pretty regular conversations with entrepreneurs
Sure.
about that, and they usually end pretty quickly. The reality is,
Yeah.
it's a lot to be a successful franchisor.
Yeah.
The parent company.
It's huge.
It's very expensive.
Right.
It's a big commitment.
Right.
I think a lot of people have no understanding of what that
I agree.
really
I
looks
agree.
like.
Yes.
So, someone has to have proof of concept.
Yep.
They need to be successful in their business
Yep.
in multiple locations. I mean, they got to know where their capital
That's right.
is coming
That's
from.
right.
So sometimes I
Yeah.
do talk with an entrepreneur, and then I refer them on to franchising attorneys
Okay.
and
Sure.
development companies that
Yeah.
help you package your franchise
Right.
brand.
Right.
But most of the time when we have a conversation, we realize that
Yeah.
they need to wait.
Huge amounts of
Yes.
money. Yeah, it's easier to just buy a franchise. And then if
For
you
most
want,
people.
because I think a lot of people think, well, I want multiple locations and I've got the capital to have, but you can have that with franchising. Somebody can own all of Atlanta with a specific franchise, right?
Right.
And so he or she is really a franchisor to some degree at that point in time when they own all of the locations, right?
They can be what you call an area developer,
Yeah.
where you lock up all the turf
Right.
to be able to grow at a reasonable pace.
Sure.
So yeah, if someone wants to,
Yeah.
Most people go into franchising to achieve a level of income and flexibility that they're happy with.
Right.
But for those who really want to be Napoleonic about it and grow an empire, there are those opportunities too.
No question about it. Franchising is the way to go. I think you guys have heard me on the show before talk about franchising. I happen to be a big believer in it. Why risk your capital when there's franchise companies out there that have already got a proven concept with many times a national brand? It's a perfect setup. Why would you screw that up by saying, no, I want to do it myself? Don't do that. Buy a franchise. And if it comes to buying a franchise, nobody better than Leslie Cuban to help you at FranNet. She's the market president here in Atlanta. With 30 years of experience, she's been on, as you heard, both sides of the coin there as a franchisee and as a franchisor, so she can help you. So thank you so much for joining us again on the show. It is always a pleasure, and our viewers get a lot out of it. How do I know? Because I get a lot of comments and emails from our viewers whenever you're on. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching Atlanta Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick. This has been a JBF Business Media production.